Welcome to the NRV Lunch Bunch Toastmasters inaugural podcast. And tonight we have a special guest, Cassandra Sabo, who is not only a founding member of the NRV Lunch Bunch Toastmasters, but she's also an administration manager for a manufacturing company here in Virginia. So she knows Toastmasters, and she also knows about being an HR manager, finance manager, and an IT manager. Cassandra, I would like to give you a quick chance to do a quick introduction. So please tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Sabo, and I have been a Toastmasters member since 2015. Actually, Tuesday will be my 10th anniversary as a Toastmasters member. And I have been doing HR, IT, marketing, all the other hats that I wear for a really long time. We'll say more than 20 years doing that. While I don't consider myself an expert, I know a lot about HR and Toastmasters. I'm
Excellent.
looking forward to speaking with you today.
Excellent. And the subject today is how do you integrate Toastmasters into your learning and development program? So I want to ask you a couple of questions. You're a Toastmaster. You're also in a company in the right position to do learning and development. And so if you use Toastmasters in your company, how would you integrate Toastmasters as a part of your learning and development program?
Well, what Toastmasters could become is an integral part of your training to help employees become better communicators, because Toastmasters isn't just about public speaking on a stage. There's also speaking publicly in meetings and with your manager and presenting your ideas. And Toastmasters has a great program that will help you hone those skills and become better at expressing yourself to your managers, your peers, and whomever else you might deal with in your personal and professional life.
Excellent. And I remember you saying something about, durable and perishable skills. And
Yes.
and how does Toastmaster help with those durable or perishable skills?
So I recently learned about those two words, and it gave me a different way of thinking about the skill sets that employees need. Perishable skills are the skills that you're constantly having to learn or go for updates. For example, if you're an HR, if you get one of your HR certifications, you have to get professional uh, credit. You have to take courses to keep up to date on the changes in the HR field. If you're in IT, you're constantly having to take training classes so that you can continue to be up to date on the latest and greatest. Your durable skills are the ones that once you learn them, they can stay with you for the rest of your life. And that are your skills of communication, time management, how to conduct a meeting properly. Now, in Toastmasters, in our meetings, we use Robert's Rules of Order. That might not be how your work meetings always run, but you can still learn. You set an agenda, you follow the time, and you have a smooth meeting because of that. So those are the type of durable skills that Toastmasters can help with.
And now, are there specific departments or roles that you feel would better or benefit most from enhanced communication and leadership training?
In general, Toastmasters would help an employee of any level in a company or in any department. But the biggest impact you're probably going to find is going to be on the mid-level, the managers who need to lead teams, because as a recent article shared, most people are more easily persuaded by someone that can communicate what they need better. Toastmasters can help with that. So a manager would then be able to lead his team to success. Project managers would benefit as well because of the time management factors that you pick up. Granted, you might need more training in project management specific areas, but for general base ground level learning, Toastmasters would be very beneficial.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about Toastmasters as a solution. From an HR perspective, what are the potential benefits you envision by incorporating Toastmasters in your learning and development offerings? I know you spoke a little bit about that, but let's get a little bit more specific about what does Toastmasters bring to the table that can now help you in a corporate setting.
Well, first off, Toastmasters is a very cost-effective solution. It's to Toastmasters International, you pay $60 every 6 months. You'll have to pay a $20 new member sign-up fee, but that's only one time. And for $120 a year, your employees can then learn how to become better communicators. It's definitely more cost effective than hiring a consultant to come in and train your team members. Uh, you can start your own club within your company, and then you can scale it. You can start small. You can have it become as large as you want. If you operate on multiple um, shifts, you could have a club for each shift. If your company is large enough, I could see having a club depending on what department you're in. It's but Toastmasters also helps you develop your active listening and critical thinking skills, which are beneficial because learning to listen to what others are telling you is better, uh, is is a benefit to helping you grow in your career. And having a Toastmasters club within your company can also help your departments communicate so that there's better interdepartment collaboration because they communicate better across, say an engineer to a marketing person, for example. Sometimes communication isn't always the best, but if you can learn to speak to your departments, then your interdepartment communication becomes more effective.
Excellent. And I want to summarize a couple of points. Cost effective, definitely very cost effective, but it's cost effective over a longer period of time. Like you said, if you brought in a consultant, they come in for a couple of months and, everybody gets jazzed up, but then they leave. And if there's no one keeping the process going, that gets kind of lost. It becomes like the flavor of the month. But with Toastmasters, it goes on all year round. There's no campaign. It is constant. I also heard, you didn't say this, but I also heard the ability to cross pollinate. So, you have somebody from the engineering department that's talking to somebody from the marketing department, and they don't speak the same language. I understand that because I'm an engineer, and I sometimes, I'm very exact, very precise, and then I have someone that is not very exact and precise, very creative, and it's frustrating. But if you put the two together in a safe environment, a non-threatening environment, then they actually learn how to communicate each other's language. So Really good stuff there. I think that there's some great benefits that probably can't, not easy to articulate and not easy to show a return on investment, but there's some soft skills there that Toastmasters could definitely help in a company setting. I appreciate that response. Let's talk a little bit about implementation and integration. What would be the ideal structure for incorporating Toastmasters? Would it be an in-house, closed Toastmasters group? Would it be like a corporate club, or sponsoring memberships to an open club where anybody can join, or perhaps a hybrid version of that?
I think a lot of it would depend on the size of your company. If you are a small company, then you might want to look at starting a community club that maybe you provide the meeting space and your team members are in the club, but then people from maybe other companies within your community can join, or people that maybe don't work for a specific company could join. If you're a larger company, then you would want to stick to an in-house club that is what Toastmasters calls a closed club, because that opens you to allowing your employees that are members to give speeches that might contain information that you don't want the outside world to know until they've honed that message that they're practicing in the club. Uh, and then you might want to consider the other option you mentioned, the hybrid option. Maybe you start as a community club until you get more buy-in from your employees, and then you look at encouraging the community members to start their own club in the community or at their company, so that you can then support your team members within the Toastmasters club.
And a couple of good points here. Toastmasters has the ability to have a closed club where it's only the company, but they also have the ability to, like you said, we have some clubs that are based on a company, but they're open because the company's not large enough to sustain their own club. And then there's a completely open club, which anybody can come to. But I do get, and I never thought about the proprietary information and it's even also, it may be even beyond that. There might be some internal things that happen that an outsider would just not understand, and probably would not feel comfortable in that club, because everybody's working from for this company in this department, and now you have an outsider, and they never feel like they're part of the group. So that's very insightful there. What resources, such as time, budget, internal support, would be available to support the launch and ongoing operation of a Toastmasters program in a corporate setting?
For a Toastmasters club within a corporate setting to be successful, the company would have to dedicate time to allow the meetings to happen during work hours. Because we know employees want to go home to, most employees, let's say, want to go home and see their families at the end of the day. So
Yes.
they're not going to want to stay late. So allowing time during the workday for the meeting, be flexible to allow employees to attend, setting a budget for getting the club started is important. It's not extremely expensive by any means to start a club, but when you're starting a club, you have to think about the chartering fees, the meeting space, if it's not available, if you have to rent. Let's say your company has completely remote employees, but you want to have an in-person club, then you might have to pay for a meeting space. You might need some initial materials or the printing costs to print out flyers to advertise within your company. And then you're going to need the HR and other members of senior leadership to buy in to this whole plan. And I think that comes best if someone within the HR team can take that idea and champion it to the senior leadership and to the employees, and also the time to recruit and employees to become your first set of club officers. And that sometimes takes convincing people that, yes, you can do that. Maybe you've never done anything like this in your life, but you can do this, and supporting them as they're learning their new roles in Toastmasters.
Yeah, that's a couple of great points. I do believe that you know, buy-in from a champion, that a decision maker who's a champion, I think is extremely important. But I also think that what another thing that you said that was very important is that maybe you have some team members that have never been in a leadership role and they want to learn how to become a leader. And it's to the company's benefit if people want to learn and grow. And here's a great venue. I mean, our tagline is where leaders are made. So, and we don't. That's just not a tagline. Our education process supports leadership, and then we give you the opportunity to lead. In most worlds, I know you've had several leadership roles within Toastmasters, and that can only be good for employees. There's no downside to, hey, we have someone that is not in a leadership role in the company, but now is in a leadership role in Toastmasters. That cannot be anything but a benefit to the company. So, some really good points that you made there. How would you communicate the availability and benefits of Toastmasters to employees to encourage participation? So we talked a little bit about the leadership. Now, convincing employees that, hey, this is not the flavor of the month. This is actually something that is beneficial. And I will tell you, is also fun. I enjoy going to Toastmasters meeting.
The What HR could do in this case is, as I mentioned, championing the. Not only should they be the one championing the program, I struggle with that word sometimes, to the leadership, but also to the employees, and actively promoting and sharing the value and the benefits. Um, Consider bringing in Toastmasters from other clubs to have a demonstration meeting so that they can see how it's going to work. Provide the resources that the employees are going to need to make this club a successful club. And then look at linking it to your performance uh, appraisal process, whether you call it a professional and personal development program, or performance reviews, or performance management. Incorporate it in that so that they see the benefit of participating in the club. Maybe that will lead to raises, and just continue to be a support system or sounding board for the executive team, so that they have somebody to talk to when they have questions or they're not sure about how something works, at least until they're uh, get their training in, and learn, and get a better grasp on the roles.
Now, the one thought that came to mind was, linking that to a performance review, as long as it's on a positive sense, right? I would hate for someone to say, well, I'm only doing this because, it's on my performance review and I've got to check that block. That's not a good reason, because Toastmasters can be hard if you're not engaged or fully engaged. It's like, I got to be here for an hour. I really don't want to be here for an hour. It's not fun, and you not having fun means that other people are not going to have fun either, because they're going to notice it. They're going to go, wow, man, Nick's sitting in the corner. He never talks. He never gives a speech. He's always got a bad attitude. I don't want to be here because, he's got a bad attitude. So that can be a tightrope to walk. But I think that the way you're talking about is, hey, this can only add. This can only add to your performance review. It's not a negative part of your performance review. It's a positive thing. It's showing professional growth. It's showing that you want to grow professionally.
Mhm.
And we've all seen it. We've seen people come into Toastmasters that were scared to death to get in front of people, and now they're accredited speakers. Now they're the world champions of public speaking because they work the program. The program just does that. And so, yeah, I like the idea of, hey, there's linkage to bonus, there is linkage to your performance review, as long as, like I said, it's done in a positive sense, and it's not like, well, if you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen to you. But I also think it's critical that leadership is there as well. I'm not saying every leader in the company needs to be in the Toastmasters group, because that may also discourage some people. But I think it's important that leaders lead from the front. If they, instead of them saying, "Well, you just go forth and do wondrous things with Toastmasters," I think leaders need to show that, hey, you know what, I'm, we all say in Toastmasters, who can Toastmasters help? Everyone, right? That's the
Exactly.
CEO down to the youngest, most recent hire in the level one position, right? And so I think it is important that the leadership is engaged. I realize that could be a problem. There could be a conflict there with employees not wanting to discuss stuff in front of senior leadership. But I do think it's important that that trust also gets built. And what a great place to build trust than in a place where we're all equals in Toastmasters. There's no one that's greater than somebody else. We're all in it to get better at listening, at speaking, at presenting, at being humans, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's move on to overcoming potential hurdles, which this seems to be where Toastmasters struggles in in corporate clubs or in corporate development. I think we also struggle in community clubs, but we struggle in community clubs for a different reason. What are the biggest potential obstacles you foresee in getting buy-in for a Toastmasters program from either leadership or from employees?
From leadership, you're probably going to see more of a time issue. Oh my! Oh, where is Joe? Oh, he's in that Toastmasters meeting. You are going to have managers that may react that way. So I think that's going to be um, it's going to give that perception to the manager. Maybe it might not, but that, oh, they're shirking their work duties because they're in the Toastmasters. So you'll have to walk a thin line there of getting the management to understand that this is dedicated time. And that's where maybe doing a lunchtime meeting is probably going to be the best way to avoid that um, reaction from the employee's manager. The employees might be, oh, I can't do public speaking, but it's while they might say, "I need help with it," that might also prevent them from joining because they're gonna be forced to face their fear. I will say that facing your fears, while it's never easy, is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself so that you can advance in your career. And then the other is probably a lack of understanding of the skills that you can learn from Toastmasters. So being upfront with what skills they're learning and how this is going to help. And Toastmasters actually has some documents that you can find on their website that kind of help you understand, oh, if this person serves as club president, this is what they're going to learn by doing it. Or if they're the club secretary, and there is one for every officer role, because you don't do the officer role because you have the experience. You do it because you want to get the experience, and then that experience can then translate into your job and help you move forward in your career.
Yeah, I love a lot of things you said, and as a matter of fact, I was taking notes, and I came back to when we started our club. I remember you and all the other mentors and sponsors of our club said, "Get up, give a speech, and don't die." And we've been around for 5 years, and so far nobody has died. So I think that's I think that's very important, that facing your fears, you know, when you know that everyone else has been through the exact same thing that you're going through right now, it makes it easier. And there's no judgment. I mean, we give feedback. We don't critique anybody. We give feedback. We give positive feedback because we all know that, hey, if I criticize you next week, you're gonna get payback. And so that doesn't work out real well. But if we give positive feedback, we can see people grow, and it's amazing
Mhm.
the growth that we see. I've never been in any organization where I've seen somebody grow as rapidly as I have in Toastmasters. And I'll be honest with you, I've always been skeptical about Toastmasters, but I've seen it, and I now believe it. Last question. What strategies would you suggest for tracking individual progress and demonstrating the collective impact of the program?
The Toastmasters program uses an educational system that they call Pathways, which already is a way to track the progress through the projects. So the employee can see where they are in the program. They can share that with their manager or with HR. And then if you encourage the managers to talk to their direct reports about their progress and maybe help the employees see how it's going to align with their development goals. Uh, because some of the projects in Pathways can actually be used to help you complete a work project. And getting feedback from your peers, whether it's the constructive feedback that you mentioned through the speech evaluations that we give, or just on a side, friend to friend, letting somebody know that you see the improvements they're making.
Right.
And then I
Yeah.
would also encourage everyone to kind of maintain their own, maybe a journal or notes about their progress, how they feel different. Because I know that's what's helped me is I can sit and say, I'm a different person today than I was when I first joined in 2015.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. I've been doing public speaking for a number of years, but I never knew how to do public speaking correctly, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And through Toastmasters, I've learned that, if you do this and you do that, and you have somebody that's giving you positive feedback, especially someone that is more experienced than you can say, okay, I may not like that feedback, and I may not be crazy about what they said about, you know, the way I presented my speech, but I always learned something. And I know that my public speaking has produced, incredible results that I never thought were possible. I was always the type that, yeah, I'm going to kind of wing this speech, which is fine. But now I've learned that I can still wing the speech, but I can do it so that I sound somewhat more professional. So,
Exactly. Have always said I didn't join Toastmasters because I was afraid of standing up in front of people and speaking. That's never been my problem. Now, making sure that what I'm saying is organized, concise, easy to understand, well organized, that, and then speaking one on one sometimes and getting my jumbled brain communication out so that it makes sense. Those are the reasons I joined Toastmasters, and it's helped. I am not perfect even after 10 years. Some people might consider that they're perfect after 2 years in Toastmasters, and that's fine. And maybe they are. It's just, I always feel like I'm constantly learning something new in Toastmasters.
Right. Absolutely. And I will tell you, there are things that I am doing now that I would have never considered had it not been for Toastmasters. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now. I've never done a podcast before. That's actually a project in Toastmasters. I never did a blog before. That's also a project in
Mm.
Toastmasters, and I regularly blog as well. So there are some things that you know you get what you get out of it, what you put into it. But I think there's some very basic things that, again, who needs Toastmasters? Everybody. Cassandra,
Exactly.
I want to thank you. I enjoy the perspective of you being not only a Toastmaster, but being an administration officer, and so you can see Toastmasters from the purely Toastmasters point of view, but you can also see Toastmasters from the corporate point of view of, hey, if we brought this into our companies today, we would have better employees and perhaps we'd have better retention of our employees as well because this is something that is fun. This is something that's educational. And this is something that, not only the company gets a benefit out of it, but the employee gets a benefit out of it as well.
Thank you so much, Nick. I really enjoyed doing this.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. I really appreciate it. And, I hope that you'll join me some other time on another Toastmasters podcast.
Oh, I'd love to.
Thank you.